was real life. That actually happened. Anyways, I'm gonna show you some more of my D&D map now because two people wanted to. Or I guess people do. Some. Anyways, we will be going over certain regions at a time. This is kind of the big the, the regions of what did I write down? Indian Ocean, Southern Ocean, and Arctic Ocean. So basically, what I'm going to do is just go over the different inspirations there. Um, maybe say things about them, and yeah. Anyways, so, as you can see, this is the Indian Ocean. You can tell because this is India, and you knew that was India, right? You probably knew that. This is southeastern maritime Asia, so that's a place. Here's Australia. We'll get to Australia. But, basically, and I'm going to include Australia in this, but basically, yeah, I just want to go over and ramble about bullshit. The Arabian Sea is part of it. Same with the Gulf of Aden, I think. So that's a thing. Uh, the Bay of Bengal. Now, what's interesting is in the Bay of Bengal, and what is officially a part in modern day of India, is there's the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, which you can barely see here. And there's a bunch of nonsense on there, such as dogmen, more dogmen, uh, horrible cannibal men, and actual people. There's actual people all throughout this in the D&D setting. It's just there's not a lot of room to um, place it. But anyways, these are real life islands. They don't have dogmen on them or horrible cannibal men, although there were, Europeans did think there were dogmen there, and they did think that Cthulhu mythos shit has chochos here, which is the horrible cannibal men. But really, these are just mostly inhabited by ancient humans who have lived there for a gajillion years. And it's a real life place. They're very geographically isolated. I don't think they have dogs. I could be wrong. And this includes, like, if you've ever heard of the Sentinelese, the really isolated group of islanders, the really dark-skinned folks who don't let people on their island. That's these guys. Uh, yeah. Not much to say there that I know. Um, Here is the ruins of Damalawa, which is basically a nation in this sword and sorcery RPG book called Atlantis Second Age. It's basically a confederation of all these Indian Ocean islanders between uh, India and Lemuria, which we'll get to. And basically, I've just placed the ruins here because I'm retarded. And here you can see that there are the Maldives. These are another island with peoples on them. I don't think this is as isolated as the Andaman and Nicobar Islands, but I could be wrong. Over here, you've got the Seychelles, which might actually be part of Africa, but whatever. Islands, I believe inhabited by African people. You got the Aldabra Coral Atoll. I don't know what that is, but I could probably check in my notes. It's a thing. It's an atoll of coral, so that's cool. Comoros Islands, more African islands. Not going to get to Madagascar because that's a whole thing. You can see some underwater features like the southeastern Indian Ridge, which is an underwater ridge. You might even say, I could be wrong about this, but maybe like because it depends. Because some things that are called ridges are like almost more like mountain ranges, and some aren't. You can see the ruins of Tarrakis, which is a pirate city from a series of apparently very mid sword and sorcery books by Lynn Carter, the Fongor of Lemuria series. Even the hero has a stupid name. Now, Tarrakis, I think, is a decent enough name. I think it's one of the pirate cities in the ancient land of Lemuria in that thing. So this is part of the broader Cthulhu mythos and part of the timeline of Conan the Barbarian and all that shit. but only retroactively, and people don't really care about it too much. But I'll include it. I'm retarded. Here is the Kerguelen Plateau, a real part of the sea. I think in the Indian Ocean. Uh, and in it, the islands aren't drawn very well. I'll eventually fix that, but there's only a small part of the Kerguelen Plateau that's above water, and that's the Kerguelen Islands. As for the rest of the plateau, I think it's most notable among nerds like me for, if it was above water, it would be one of the largest islands. It wouldn't really be a continent, but it would be a very large island. Um, and let's see. I guess we might as well get to Lemuria. So Lemuria began its life as a scientific theory before we had the theory of mm, pardon me, before we had the theory of tectonic shifting and continent shifting and rifting and all that stuff over time. Um, we now have, we used to have this lack of understanding. And basically what happened was scientists were like, wait a minute. In the modern day, lemurs are found mostly on Madagascar. And I think maybe also, I don't know if they're still around in India or Australia, but we find fossils of them on all three places, right? In India, in Madagascar, and in Australia. But I think, and I could be wrong about this, one of those other places might have a small population, but Madagascar is where most of them are. So they were like, why is that? And one scientist was like, well, maybe there used to be a land bridge between these three places. And he called it Lemuria, because lemurs. We were talking about lemurs. But it was actually quite quickly abandoned, and I think the guy who made it up was like, just a wrong theory. Oh well, move on. However, it quickly, well, I don't know how quickly. It might have been resurrected years after, but Lemuria ended up attracting a lot of weirdos. One of which, I could be wrong, but the I forget who the first person to say Lemuria was like an Atlantis type continent is, but it's caught on ever since as that. And it's usually placed in the Indian Ocean, sometimes in the Pacific, where like Mu and shit is, but I've placed it in the Indian Ocean. And you might notice there is a part of this that is not labeled the islands, it's actually a big landmass, almost like, damn near a continent. And that is Kumari Kondam. That is a derivation of the Lemuria myth from the Tamil people of southern India, who believe, some of, obviously not all, but some of them believe, we originated civilization. It actually wasn't the Indic speakers of India, it wasn't the Sumerians, it wasn't any of those guys, it was us. And we had the original Hindu religion and the original Hindu civilization, and it was on the continent of Lemuria, which they call Kumari Kondam, because of, I think, like a misinterpretation of some archaic Tamil writing or something, and they say, we had this grand empire of Kumari Natu or something. And, as soon as I heard that myth, I'm like, okay, Kumari Kondam has to be a thing, but at the same time, how can you have a continent that is only inhabited and only ruled by one ethnicity, right? You would have that only if it was completely uninhabited by people and one very mono-ethnic group somehow came across it. That's the only way that would make any sense, and that's boring, okay? So I haven't figured out much of what I want to turn Kumari Kondam into, other than I want it to be kind of a little sandal punk, which is kind of already heavily overlaps with the sword and sorcery aesthetic that I'm going for with most of this map. But essentially, in this timeline, it is the part of Lemuria that is not completely fucked and mostly under the sea. So yeah, you've got this like antediluvian Kumari Natu, the empire of the Hindu, Tamil. You've got the Niji, which is something I made up, basically brown-skinned, purple-haired people. They used to have a civilization called Niji, and now these are the post-Niji. So these are the descendants, the survivors, or whatever. I don't know. Here's this date that someone kept giving, or maybe the original guy gave, for when Kumari Kondam civilization began. This stage of Kumari Natu Kumari Kondam civilization is not at this time though, because this map is dated 4500 BCE, not 25,000 years earlier. So this is an ancient ruin of a previous cycle of civilization. I kind of take that idea, a mix from just kind of cataloging all of these Cthulhu mythos civilizations that have come and gone. I was like, God damn, how do people keep forgetting this stuff? You know, how do people keep going from, oh, we have lavish cities and metalworking and magic and shit and all this amazing stuff. Oh, but then something bad happens, and then we all just go back to flinting stone. And of course, that doesn't work in real life, which is why such theories are stupid. But in fantasy, it can work for a variety of reasons. But yeah, this is just a previous Kumari Natu, basically, in a previous cycle of the world when it looked different. And then I think it was a white guy, I could be wrong, this could be an Indian guy. Pavinar said, oh yeah, there's a civilization, and it dates to this and then. And so I don't know what date this is, but that's another ruined civilization. And then because the 90 East Ridge, which is a nearly north-south ridge underwater in the Indian Ocean, which is called the 90 East because I think that's the coordinates of it or something. I don't fucking know. But I gave that a little bit of some mountains on pardon me, on Kumari Kondam. It also kind of overlaps with Skull Island, but we'll get to that. I hope I don't forget. For Lemuria, proper, you've got a mix of stuff, but it's almost, well, some of it's interesting. You can see here's the Theosophical Dragon Men ruins. I wish I could tell you more about this. I read somewhere that in the writings of Madame Blavatsky, the racist Russian lady who created Theosophy or something and helped spread the idea of Lemuria as an Atlantis-type continent, she said, oh, well, during the time of the human Lemurians, the brown-skinned, giant, mostly egg-laying Lemurian humans, there were dragon men. I don't know what the fuck the dragon men were doing there, but they're there. Here are those Lemurians. I don't know if I'll keep them being egg-laying. I mean, I know it's like, oh, it's mythology. Yeah, but I mean, I kind of feel like that's to distance the brownness from the humanity, given when that was written. So they might be, because here's the thing, these humans are like millions, let me put it this way, the lineage she gives for these Lemurians goes all the way back to like the beginning of the Earth, so maybe these humans can afford to be weird, I don't know, but they're definitely not gonna, look like, real people, I don't think. I think they're gonna look like weirdos. Speaking of weirdos, remember that Lynn Carter guy and his Lemuria ship? Well, this is more of that Lemuria ship. The Dragon King ruins, which are basically the evil lizard men who rule Lemuria, or try to, from their inner sea, and fuck everything up, and they're bad. Yeah. And then here's an actually well, okay, first of all, I'll give credit where it's due. My friend Will, I don't know if you want me to say his full name, but Will F, let's say, he made up this civilization with me. We came up with the idea, and I'll give most of the credit to him, because I think that's true. But he was like, oh, what if there were like this caveman civilization? I'm like, okay, that's cool, but like what kind of caveman? I was like, I think I mentioned like having like a hybrid mixed population would be really interesting. I was like, yeah. and I think he said Homo erectus, and he said Cro-Magnon, and I let him know, like, well, Cro-Magnon isn't really a different species or subspecies. That kind of came from racism, and actually those guys weren't white, and they're now called the Ordination culture. But we can have these guys be like half Ordination culture, half Homo erectus. I'm fine with that. That's perfectly fine with me. He's like, yeah. And then we came up with the idea that these guys developed a writing system because of playing board games, right? These guys somewhere in Lemuria, because previously I had placed these on a continent that he made up called Aquados, next to a continent that I made up called Zathage. But I think they were pretty extraneous, and so I just put the stuff in here. Um, but yeah, the Wadin, they eventually achieved an empire. They had a vast civilization now in Lemuria. And yeah, they're still going along. I think this is the later years of their civilization, but they're still around, and they're complicated, weird people, and I like it. I like that me and Will made that up. And then here's something really cool. This is from that Atlantis Second Age RPG. This is the ruins of their Lemuria. And the thing about this is these are scientific gorilla men. I think in some artwork they're just shown as ape men generally. But whatever. It's they have guns that shoot bronze or brass darts, and are gas powered, and they have all sorts of weird shit, and it's cool. So there's definitely some of those guys left. Christmas Island, I don't know what the fuck that is. Oh wait, Skull Island. This is literally traced from the Peter Jackson version map from one of the books. I even tried to fill in the forests and the hills and the shit where they were. But yeah, there's King Kongs. There's trenches here that definitely go to the Hollow Earth. Definitely gonna make a Hollow Earth map eventually. I tried making one. It didn't go good, but it's all right. Yeah, and yeah, and now we will go to here. So, on the Forgotten Sea is another label from Atlantis Second Age, denoting this part of the sea to the west, southwest of Lemuria, and what they call Moon, which is their version of Australia. But whatever. Here's another weird place, Sagittarium. This is from a flat Earth map. Any info I have on it mostly comes from CM Kosemen's, that's CM, two initials, Kosemen. He's a Turkish researcher and artist, and I really like his stuff. And he covered a series of flat Earth maps that someone had made, or maybe multiple people had made, one or maybe all of them trolling. But yeah, it's just a landmass, and it's got this like little fertile region here. So something will happen. And this landmass was from that same map, but wasn't. Sorry, mouth stripe. But wasn't labeled. He called it Memo Land, which is Memo is an old nickname of his, so that's what I called it. And whatever he said was on it is what's on it, but I forget what he said. Here's a fracture zone between different plates or ridges or whatever. There's an underwater plateau west of Australia, broken plateau west of Australia. But here's Australia. Now, I have not labeled any indigenous groups. Really, not even any human groups. And also, this label should be moved, because this is referring to Graham Hancock's belief in a North American Atlantean magical psychic sage civilization. And why I need to move this is because he always cops out. They're either like, well, why haven't we found their cities? Why haven't we found anything of them? He's like, oh, well, they used magic. And he's like, well, but what about this stuff? You would find something. He's like, oh, they're on the coast. So this needs to be on the coast. But anyways, and here's the Great Desert of Australia, probably improperly placed. I actually just watched a video on the Aborigines before this, and they were really fucking cool. It was actually, as far as I know, And of course, this could be a whitewashing or something. But as far as I know, they are the reason that Australia was so pretty before the Europeans came. And then the Europeans, their animals ran over everything, and it all went to shit. Because apparently they were tending to the landmass, and I don't know. But anyways, here's a city from Cthulhu mythos. It is Nakotis. It is where the Nakotic fragments come from, which are ancient dinosaur time writings by the Yithians, who are cone things from space that came to Earth and found the original cone things and said, "Hey, we're stealing all of your bodies. Now we're you." And then there's science weirdos, and yeah, so you can go in there and die or have your body snatched. Here's a couple things I made up. Here's the Shale Men cities. The idea is shale, the rock was underground, oily shale, and then some magic bullshit happened, and then they became men, and then eventually they built cities that are impossible to pronounce by a human. And then there's the Chrome Men, who did the same thing, except I forget how they happened, but they're like liquid chrome in the shape of a featureless human. I made those up a long time ago. I think they're really cool. I also made up this civilization, Ba Rin. Also some over here, but oh well. Ba Rin is something I made up. It is a civilization from here, from this place, what used to be Sahul, and now they're gone. Who knows what happened? Also, Tasmania. Tasmania is a thing. People are on there. Also, Czar. I think it's a desert civilization from Thongor of Lemuria, the Lynn Carter thing. We're going to skip over the Pacific because that'd be a whole nother video. But we will jump to the Southern Ocean. Here is Caspak. This is an island from Edgar Rice Burroughs' series of prehistoric fantasy pulp adventure stories. He's the guy who made Tarzan. He made other stuff. And he made John Carter of Mars, if you know that. And this is kind of similar to another one of his things, Pellucidar, except where that is an underground Hollow Earth fantasy world inhabited by all sorts of prehistoric beasts. In this, the different prehistoric groups are specifically placed. I could be misinterpreting this. I could have gotten this from someone's drawing or something, but I think they're placed in different, almost like preservations by some alien intelligence. So basically, when you look at all these labels that are like in capital, like Stolu, Bolu, Krolu, Galu, these are all humans of various human species and time periods that have their own tribes. I think one of them is a Sahelanthropus, which is like the quote-unquote missing link, which is the earliest known upright walking hominin type guy. They're pretty cool. Although in this they have hatchets, which is neat. There's a plateau, there's dinosaurs, there's apes, there's the subterranean channel, so if you don't want to climb the unscalable cliffs, which I haven't placed because I'm retarded, then you can instead you can go underwater and come through the river, and that's probably very dangerous and stupid, but you can do it. And so that looks like a fun place to have fun. Here's Antarctica. It's a nightmare. You got the Ross Sea, that's what it's called. You got the Onyx River, which is always covered and frozen. That's really cool. You've got the Trans-Antarctic Mountains, which are cool. You've got the Snow Honkies. Now, for further reference, we'll start over here. So basically, some guy who you've probably heard of called Edgar Allan Poe made up a pulp, well, not even pulp, made up an adventure story where some stupid white people go to the Southern Ocean and they're like, we're going to find the white giants of the South Pole, and instead they land in Salal, the land where there's black people, and their teeth are black, and everything is black, and it's really racist, because Edgar Allan Poe was really racist. However, in a later pastiche by a black dude, who is probably still alive, it's actually, the people are black, but there's color all over, and it's a beautiful, thriving island, and that's the version I go with. And they can also have black teeth. I don't care, they got both. In that, he turned those mythical white giants into horrible, retarded slaver giants, which, as a white person, I am not offended by in the slightest, and in fact, I'm rooting for the cool black people over here to come over and just like lynch all the snow honkies. But there's also black pyramids from the myths of Antarctic pyramids. Those are fun. Lots of people believe in them. Unfortunately, Kodos is a civilization I made up where this was once temperate rainforest for some reason. That's gone. Here you can see not only the perfect rectangle iceberg, but the fact that I accidentally typed something before the letter I, and it looks weird. So this is NASA posted a photo of a very rectangular looking iceberg, which looked like that because it had recently rifted. And some people are like, oh, this is proof of the alien, the Atlantis, because it's square. No. New South Greenland is something someone made up in a story and didn't, I don't know. And then, oh yeah, this is the Alien versus Predator Island, where the Predator has human slaves, and sometimes he fights the alien, the xenomorph, in order to test his mettle in battle. So that's pretty based, and it probably inspired people to believe in this. So yeah. Now, finally, for the Arctic. So this Arctic used to have one extra continent called Manikov, which was my idea of like, what if there was like a sort of Skyrim-esque, Atmoran, Inuit slash Siberian like civilization of high fantasy guys, and they're giant, and they're not a different species. They're just a very unique group in that they tend to be very tall, and they tend to be hairier than most people. The women tend to, without any, and this isn't like me trying to stereotype some group. I'm not trying to stereotype, for example, Inuit. But they're just like a fantasy race that is inspired by multiple groups, including European groups, but basically they tend to have facial hair on men and women. Obviously, you'd think the women have lesser. Well, it's this one. It doesn't really matter. But anyways, they're kind of hairy, and the women grow beards and don't care. And they're a thriving civilization in the Arctic that rides frost dragons and has to deal with White Walker type bullshit, and they will kill. Over here. Is some more Cthulhu Mythos stuff from the Hyperborea cycle. There's the city of Comorium, which is the first capital of Clark Ashton Smith's Hyperborea cycle, the pre-human weirdos. This was their first city. And then some guy who was a demigod got executed there like 3 different times, and then he ate the whole city. And then Uzel-Durome, or whatever the fuck you call it, was the second capital. And that probably just got glaciated to death. Now, what you really want to see is the North Pole, right? And that's because Cinderclus is here. Now, Cinderclus is really cool because he's actually Cinderclus the Third, because Cinderclus the Second lost a battle to Krampus and was murdered and eaten. So he enacted his, the Santa Claus, and the Santa Claus says that, whoever, well, of course, Krampus can't be Santa Claus because Cinderclus hates Krampus, it's a religious issue. And so he was like, well, I know this cool orangutan, and so he, here, I'll show you, I'll show you the fucking, where is it? So here's Cinderclus. As you can tell, he's a very trustworthy individual. He definitely doesn't tolerate domestic abuse by his reindeer of their children. He definitely doesn't tolerate sweatshop-like labor in the workshop by Boss Elf. You can see this is the death of. I guess it. Well, yeah. It was Krampus. It was definitely Krampus. But here's Cinderclus the Second about to die. I guess this guy was there. This is someone's art. And here's the Christmas elf witnessing his death to tell it to the whole workshop. Here's Donner. This is Rudolph's dad. He's a fucking cunt. I hope he dies. Here's Boss Elf. He is a fundamentally broken elf. He was never given a name. You want to know why he's called Boss Elf? Because that was what the name he was born as. He had no choice in his career. or his goals or who he was going to be. So even though he's also evil and he's a sweatshop driver, a manager, whatever you want to call him, he is a pitiful man. Um, and then you got Mount Meru, which is an Indian thing that Theosophy was like, oh, it's coal. Like, okay. And here's the Island Misfit Toys. Pretty sure you want to see the Island Misfit Toys, don't you? Um, Isle of Misfit Toys. So here's Hermie the elf, an outcast from Santa's workshop who just wanted to be a dentist, and Rudolph. I don't know why Rudolph's face looks kind of. It's fine. I think this is pretty good art for what it is. It's just the shape of his face. For some reason, it feels off. I can't explain it. But Hermie just wanted to be a dentist, and the sweatshop worker boss elf wouldn't let him. And if things really came to a head when Hermie declared that he was a femboy, and Boss Elf was like, "You can't be a femboy." Or no, it wasn't Boss Elf; it was someone else. They're like, "You can't be a femboy. You're heterosexual." And then he tore that person's sinuses out and killed him, and so now they're on the run. So that's pretty cool. And there's toys. There's doubtless many toys there. Let's see what else is here. You can see here's the Sea of the Dead wraps around like that. That is the what is that from? That might be from Lord of the Rings, Tolkien. That might be from Atlantis Second Age. I don't know. Tower of the Gods is something I made up, although I kind of ripped it off from Wind Waker because I'm unashamed. Wind Waker is the Bible. Elder Hyperborea has much more, of course. There's the Dragonbone Bridge, which I made up. There's the Pyramid City of Yorp Albla, which I made up. Horrible name. Megafauna riding nomads. So these are guys like riding giant woolly mammoths and woolly rhinos and furry dinosaurs and all sorts of cool shit. The Arimaspi are ancient Greek mythical group. The Riffian Griffins are also one of those. The Riffian Mountains are the southern border of Hyperborea in myth, and Sanakov Land is a bullshit phantom island that someone used in a sci-fi book and said, oh, there's a tribe of Neanderthals here called the Vampu. Yeah, he was Russian, so it probably wasn't funny to him. Mount Riffius is where the Theosophy lady, Madame Blavatsky, was making up shit. She's like, oh, this is the place. Kim Persha, that's one of the Hyperborean race of the Theosophists. Like, oh, that's one of the lost races of mankind. The Iglothian mountains are cool. They're black, jagged mountains from the Hyperborea cycle by Clark Ashton Smith, and they're home to a massive underground network of caves that goes on for miles and miles and miles. That includes the abode of gods, earlier archetypes of the human race, and all sorts of horrible, 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 horrible things that want human sacrifice, because that's fun. Also, here is Topai. This is a dragon island. It's an empire of dragon men. I made that up, and I made up the shape, but I think I basically copied it from a bunch of things. But who cares? Who cares? I stitched it together myself, so I made it up. I get to claim the glory. Is Scargos? Oh, it does. Scargos is a thing I made up. I heard someone mispronounce a Game of Thrones thing because he didn't mispronounce it. I misheard him. He said Skagos, and I thought, oh, he must mean Scargos. That must be the name because there's a thing in Game of Thrones book in Song of Ice and Fire that's Island of North, and it's called Skagos. But mine is completely unrelated to that. His has like people riding shaggy unicorns that are more in line with medieval unicorns where they're kind of goat-like. This is the island of the Bear Men. Many tribes of them, as well as the Blue Men, who are normal Homo sapiens sapiens. They're not like a subspecies. They're not magical. It's just sometime in their past, their ancestors artificially had their skin cyanized, which is a real process that can happen chemically. You've probably seen that famous guy who had blue skin and then died, and he kept having it because of some silver that he was doing or something. I don't fucking know. But there was also 1800s communities that were inbred in the United States, where two or more people who had the same thing would interbreed together, and you had these large communities of blue people in like Virginia or something. I don't know where it was, but yeah, these guys are not inbred. It was artificially done, and I think there's also this is kind of a Solstheim slash just general like idea of like a northern inhabited fantasy island, right? This is another one of the kind of like Alfheim and a bunch of other ones, one of the more fantastical, more like anything goes, high fantasy type places. Maybe not high fantasy to like the normal people, but it would work well for sword and sorcery. Like you could go there and fight the bearmen. You could be allies with some of the bearmen. It'd be fun, or the blue people too. Um, oh, and also there's Ultima Thule. It's an island from myth. It's the North place. Ykilth is another thing from the Hyperborean cycle. At the end of the Hyperborean age, the Great White Worm, which I think was called Relim Shykorth or some crazy shit like that, came on his moving iceberg Ykilth, and his eyes bled, and I guess he destroyed the civilization. And Muthulan is the peninsula where a certain Hyperborean magician named Ibon hid away in wilderness for a bunch of years, and then this is the city it came from, Ikwa. I think that's about it. Yeah, I mean you see the Arctic Ocean, but is that all? Yeah. Well, let me see. Let me just make sure. Let's see. Oh yeah, I did it. Okay, well, I guess I did that. Hope you enjoyed it. I might do more. If I do, the next one will be the Pacific Ocean. Bye bye.